Hey guys, I'm Suleiman Khan and you're watching The Engineer Boy. Alright, just look at the left hand side and it has been sent by someone. It looks like an assignment carrying 20 marks. Okay, so it is a project consists of 9 activities. Just look at the table. These are activities, then we have predecessors, and then the duration of the activity. Now the task is actually, with reference to table 1, construct a network diagram by going through the forward and backward pass. Okay, so it is just the same thing, drawing a network diagram and then calculation for the forward pass and backward pass. Okay, you may draw your network diagram in Excel or Word. Okay, I have Excel, it has been already opened. No problem, an image of a hand-drawn network diagram will not be accepted. Okay, handwriting is not accepted over here and will not receive marks. Very great, professor. Okay, construct the network diagram using the standard node layout. Okay, see below, introduced in the lecture. I actually have no idea what the professor has been teaching. I mean the method. Okay, do not use methods other than those used in the lectures for the module. Okay, so the legends are activities, duration, early start, early finish, late start, and then the late finish. Okay, let me have a sheet, and as you can see, we got activity, early start, early finish, late start, and late finish, and there is the duration. It is the same legend. Okay, we have over here. Okay, so I'm going to just a minute, I'm going to drag this guy over there so we can see only this table. And now I'm going to have a copy of the same thing, and let me just paste it over here. Remember, a project should have a start, you can say, and that is going to be the project start. Okay, that is the activity. The start does not take time, so I'm going to have that a 0 week duration. Now the duration is 0 and the early start is 0, so the early start plus duration, that is going to be the early finish. Okay, and that is the same thing as 0. Okay, now we cannot have things with this because we are not doing the backward pass. Okay, the first thing is to draw the network diagram. So let's just have another copy of this, and as you can see, we have activity A and B. That those activities do not have predecessors. That means those are actually the starting points of the project. So let me have an activity there. Okay, just having a copy, and then an activity over there, and one just here. Let me just say this one is activity A, that one is activity B. Okay, the duration of activity A, that is 2 weeks. B, and remember, we do not have these things. Okay, so I'm going to have a delete. All right, now let me just have some words here so I can just make some you can say format in the Excel, so we do not take more, you can say, space. Okay, that is now good. All right, now I'll just delete those I mean 111, and let me just zoom that so we can see that better. All right, that's good. Now as you can see, that is B, that is A. Now activity C, that is just starting once activity A completes. Okay, so activity C has predecessor A. That means we're gonna start another activity which is C, and that is gonna be after A. Okay, so I'm going to have a copy of that, and let me just have another thing over here. Okay, and that is the same thing. All right, now as you can see, I have insert tab, and there we have shapes and arrows. So the start is till B, and I'm going to have another copy, and let me just have an arrow over there, and there we have activity C, which is this one, and that is after A. So simple. Okay, there is nothing complicated over here. It is quite simple and straightforward. Okay, now we have activity D, and then we have activity E, and those two are actually starting after C. Okay, so we have 2 activities actually. Let's have Control C, and one is going to be here, let's say, and another one over here, let's say. Okay, All right, and let me just make some. So actually that is activity D and E. Let's say this one is D and that one is E. Now activity C, that is actually of 1, okay, the duration is 1 week. Activity D, that is 4, and activity E, that is actually 3. Okay, and again the arrows, let me just copy those things. Let's make that guy over there. Now that's pretty good, okay, and I can have, like, let me just make some wait a minute, where is it? All right, it's over here, shape outline, and the weight, let me just make that guy over there. Okay, now it's good. All right, activity E is done. Now activity F starts once D and E are being completed, okay. So D and E, okay, after that we have activity, and let me just have that over here. All right, so simple, gonna have some adjustment. Now activity D, and that is after activity F, okay, that is F, and whose duration is 3 units, and that is just like that, okay. So we have predecessors which are D and E. It means F have D and E as predecessor. Now activity G, we have another activity which is G, and that is BC. So it is gonna start after B, and there we have C. So let's have another activity, and let me just put that guy over there, okay. So we can have another activity. If it's done, there is G, and the duration is actually 2 weeks, okay, and that actually has predecessors which is B, and another one is actually C. Okay, I'm gonna start it from there and like that. So simple. Okay, G is done. Now we have H, and that has predecessors D and G, which means this one and this one. So we have another activity. Okay, I'm going to put that over there, and we have that one H, that is H, with 1 unit, I mean 1 week duration, okay. And let's have that guy just like that, okay. I'm going to have arrows from G and another arrow from D. So simple. All right, now let's have another activity which is I, and that is actually F and H. I mean I has F and H as predecessors. So I have another activity. Let me just copy this one, and we're here, okay. Let me just bring that guy over there so we can have a little bit room. All right, now the duration of H is actually 1, right. The duration of I, which is actually 2. That's good. And this is actually the last activity, but still I'm going to have another activity which is called the project's end, okay, just like this one, okay. So let's have another activity, and that is going to be the end of the project, and I'm going to call this one the project's end. PE means project's end, and that does not have duration. All right, I'm going to have arrow. Activity I starts once H and F is completed, sorry, and there we have the project's end. That is actually the end of the project. So simple. This is actually the network diagram, okay. This is the network diagram. Okay, let's just calculate the forward pass of the network diagram, and over here we are going to calculate the early start and early finish of the activity, or you can say of the project. And as you can see, the project start date has duration 0, the early start and early finish are 0, okay, because project start does not take time. Now remember, B and A, these are successor of project start, okay. So actually the early start of B, the early start of A is going to be the early finish of activity, which is the project start. So we're gonna have that 0 over there, okay, is the project or you can say the early start of B and early start of A. Now remember, the early finish of the activity is actually the early start plus the duration. Now the early start is 0, the duration is 8, that means the early finish is going to be 8. Similarly, 0 plus 2, that is actually 2. Alright, we gonna take this 2, which is actually the early finish of the activity A, we're gonna have that over here as the early start of the C. Okay, so 2 over there. Now add the duration, which is 1, so that is going to be the early finish of the activity C, which is 3. Now if you look to activity G has two predecessors, B and C. Okay, that means we have two early finishing, like you can say 8 and 3, but we're gonna have to take the activity, or you can say the early finish, with more weeks or with more duration. And as you can see, 8 is more than 3, so we're gonna have that over there as the early start of the activity G. Okay, so I'm gonna have that over there. Now 8 plus 2, that is actually 10. And why are we taking the maximum duration? Because G is starting once B and C are completed. Now C is completing after 3 days actually, but B is completing after 8 days. If you start the activity G after 3 days, that's not gonna happen because B is still remaining. So once B is completed, then you can start activity G, because once B is completed, the activity C is already been completed, because activity C having 3 days or weeks may be no problem, but activity B is gonna take you 8 weeks. Okay, so the maximum should be taken. However, in the backward pass, we gonna have to take the less video as the, you can say, the late start maybe. Okay, we're gonna do that little bit late. Okay, now let's gonna have this 3 over there to the early start of the activity D actually, and the same thing to the activity E. Now add the duration of activity D with the early start, which is actually 3 plus 4, and it's going to be 7, which is the early finish. Now 3 plus 3, that is going to be 6. Alright, it is the same thing with activity H, because that has predecessors G and D, but we're gonna take the maximum early finish, and in this case we have 10, so we're gonna have that 10 is the early start of activity H. Add the duration, which is 1, so that's gonna be 11. F is the same. Okay, we're gonna have the maximum early finish of the D or maybe of the F. Okay, as you can see, the early finish of D is more than the early finish of activity E, so we're gonna have that 7 where there is the early start of activity F. So 7 at the duration, which is going to be 10. So simple. I is the same thing, and actually that is 11. What's going on? That is 11. Maybe we do not have more. Oh, oops. Okay, now it's good. Now we're gonna bring 11 where here is the early start of activity I, because 11 is more than 10. Okay, at the duration, which is actually 2, and that is 13 if I'm not wrong. Okay, there may be actually mistake in my calculation. Don't look to the mistakes, I mean the calculation, just look at the learn the process, I mean the methodology. Okay, bring that over there because that is last activity. So 13 at the duration, which is 0, so the early finish of the project's end is going to be 13 days. Do the backward pass. Okay, so 13 is going to be just below that, 13 minus the duration of the project's end, which is 0, so that's gonna be 13 again, because 13 minus 0, that is 13. Okay, now bring the late start of the project's end to the actually the late finish of the activity I mean the 13 were here. Okay, subtract the duration. In the backward pass, we actually subtract the duration. In the forward pass, we actually add the duration. Okay, so 13 minus 2, that is going to be 11. Now another thing which we have, actually the I is the successor of activity H and F. So we're gonna have that do were here and the 2 were there. I mean 11, sorry, that's 11. The late start is actually 11, so 11 is going to be here. Now subtract the duration, which is going to be 10, and subtract the duration, which is 3 this time. So 11 minus 3, that is going to be 9. I mean 8, right? If I'm not wrong, that is going to be 8. 8 plus 3, that is 11. Now just look at over here, activity F. The late finish of the activity E is going to be the late start of the activity F. So 8 is going to be over there. Subtract the duration, I mean 8 minus 3, that is going to be 5. Okay, so simple. Now if you look to activity D, actually activity D is the predecessor of activity F and activity H. Okay, so we're gonna look to the minimum value. Okay, is the, you can say, late start. Now the late start of activity F is 8. The late start of activity H is 10. So we're gonna have to take 8 this time. Okay, so bring 8 over there, subtract the duration, which is actually 4, and that is going to be 4. Now bring that 10 over here, okay, and subtract the duration, which is going to be 8. So simple. Now if you look to activity C, that is actually the predecessor of 3 activities, G, D and E. Now we're gonna have to look to the actually, I mean the late start of each activity, which is 8, 4, and then we have 5. Okay, so we're gonna have to take the minimum video. Now minimum in these 3 is actually 4, so we're gonna have 4 over there, right? Now 4 minus the duration, which is 1, that is going to be 3. So simple. Bring that 3 over there and subtract the duration, which is actually 2. So 3 minus 2, that is going to be 1. So simple. Bring the late start of activity G to the late finish of activity B, that is 8, and we're gonna bring that over and subtract the duration, which is 8, so there is going to be 0. Okay, so simple. Now bring the minimum, actually we're gonna have to delete these things, the project start. Okay, now we have 0 and 1 is the late start of B and A. So 0 is minimum, we're gonna bring that 0 over there and subtract the duration, which is 0. So 0 minus 0, that is going to be 0. That means the calculation is correct. Okay, once you have 0, 0, 0 over here. Okay, if you have 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, that means the calculation is also correct. I mean 10 maybe over here and here. Okay, and that actually justify that the calculation is pretty good and it is correct. Okay, so the early start, the early finish, the late start, the late finish of the project is actually this thing, or you can say the project is going to take you 13 weeks. That is actually the longest path as well. Okay, now if you look to this one, the project end, activity I, activity H, activity G, activity B, the project start, that is actually your critical path. I'm going to make that yellow so you can understand, you can see the critical path. Okay, and why I'm saying that is the critical path, because the duration of this path is more than the other path's duration. Okay, we can have this path, we can have this path. Actually we have 3 paths. Okay, the project start, B, G, H, I, the project end. Another path is the project start, A, C, D, F, I, the project end. Another path is actually the project start, A, C, E, F, I, project's end. And why I'm saying that this is actually the critical path, because each activity in this path is critical, and those guys have zero plot, because if you subtract 13 from 13, okay, that is 0, 11 minus 11, that is 0, 10 minus 10, that is 0, 8 minus 8, that is 0, 0 minus 0, that is 0. So each activity has 0 float. That means those activities are critical, and that path is a critical path. Okay, so actually, to you can also mention to your professor that the critical path is actually the project start. Okay, that is the project start plus activity B plus activity G plus activity H and plus activity I plus activity, that is the project's end. Okay, so this is actually the assignment, and let me just, okay, we have to calculate the forward pass and backward pass, and that's been done. Okay, so this is how we can do it. Okay, see you in the next video.